Yes, please. Yeah, that translates as, I'm ready for pizza, I'll shut that dude up. So, never mess with the dude in the sound room, because they have ultimate control over you. I got up one place and said, well, I don't see a clock, and the dude in the sound room projected a number behind me. It was counting down. It was real, no pressure there. All right, so you get to Matthew, and he tells the story of the feeding of the 5,000, and then he tells the story about the disciples being in the boat, but he adds something that, although he agrees with Mark just doesn't mention. And let's look at that. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into a boat and go over to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening is come, he was alone there. And the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, because the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled and cried out, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear, and immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." And Peter answered and said, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you walking on the water." Oh, wow. So let's talk about Peter's logic for just a moment. Let's suppose your parents said, "Now look, we're going to go to the movies, and we trust you. We're going to leave you at home by yourself. Don't let anybody in the house." Got it? Okay. They leave there. It's dark. You're sitting there watching TV. You decided to watch some scary movie because you're dumb. And so now you're in the house by yourself. It's dark and it's scary. And then a thunderstorm comes and knocks all the power out. And then you hear something prowling around the yard. And you go, "What's out there?" "Oh, don't worry about it, it's just me." "Well, if you're really not a bad guy, ask me to come out in the yard and play with you." That's as stupid as a run-over dog, right? Peter and the apostles think Jesus is some kind of water demon, and Peter's solution is, "Well, if you're really okay, ask me to get out of the one place I'm safe and come to you." Oh, wow. The Wile E. Coyote book of fiascos, debacles, and worst-case scenarios. I mean, hear this. What makes him think that that's the answer to any kind of solution? And what does he expect Jesus is going to tell him? "Sit down, Peter, I'll be there in a minute." But shock of all shocks, what does Jesus say? And Jesus said, "Come." And when Peter had come out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those who were in the boat came and worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Now, it agrees 100% with everything Mark said. Mark just leaves out this part where Peter gets the spotlight. There's so much here that I don't understand. So much of this I can't answer. I don't even know how the whole water walking thing works. Right? I mean, does Peter go, or do you put one foot out of the boat? Whoo, wave. And do you slide your feet at first and then start stepping? I have no idea how it works. But he gets out to Jesus, and he's away from the boat, and he's looking at, and then all of a sudden, you ever had that moment of clarity? Like, oh wow. Hey, Lonnie, put this sleeve on. hide in this building, and after about 30 minutes of messing with the negotiators, find a door, a window, and sneak out. And then as soon as we light you up, we're going to send a canine after you. Sure, that sounds cool. I'm 5'4", 120-pound German Shepherd or German Malinois looks me right in the eye. They see somebody my size, they think snack size, okay? That's like a little bitty bags of chips you guys had for lunch. So I break out this window and I start running, and I'm digging. And the guy goes, "Huntsville Police, canine, stop or release the dog." I don't stop. I've been told not to stop. And I hear that chain hit the pavement. And then I think, what are you doing? They just shot a fur missile at you. I mean, so Peter's out here and he realizes, boat, me, storm starts under. And then Jesus grabs him. And Jesus says, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, I don't like to get much into the world of conjecture. I like to pretty much stick facts, concepts, applications. But I have to think on this. Is it fair to call Peter little faith? I mean, can you call a guy who just walked on water little faith? Hey, let's do this. Let's take a marker and let's get some scaffolding and let's write on this wall the names of every person who ever lived who never walked on water. Whose names did we have to put there? Everybody. Okay? Hey, when Moses crosses water, he parts it. When Elijah crosses water, he parts it. And if we go over here and write on this wall all the people who ever walked on water, hey, Jesus, go sign the wall. Excuse me, Lord. Yes, Peter, can I borrow your marker? You realize the only two names on that wall are Jesus and Sneaky Pete? I mean, that's it. Hey, Lord, look, everybody who's ever lived never pulled this off, and you and I are the only two guys in this club, and what did you just call me? Can you call a guy who walked on water little faith? And I don't know if he took 5 steps or 50. I know for a brief moment of time, the only other guy on the planet who was like Jesus was Peter. Everybody else is in the boat. If you could spend 1 second a day and be just like Jesus, where would you spend it? What would you do with it? Everybody else in your life is in the boat and they're scared, and the only person courageous enough, faithful enough, brave enough, dumb enough to get out of the boat and be with Jesus. You could spend 1 second a day just like Jesus. Where would you spend it? Young people, your parents would spend it with you because they're so desperately trying to get you to go to heaven and see how important it is. They wouldn't spend it at work. They wouldn't spend it with their friends. They spend it on you. Because if you don't go to heaven, they feel like they failed. But if you don't go to heaven, that's what you chose, not them. And you can't blame it on them. You can't blame it on the church. You can't blame it on the elders. You can't blame it on the ministers. You got to decide if I'm one of those people who get out of the boat when everybody else is in the boat, and be that way. So I wrestle with this idea of, why does Jesus call Peter little faith? Because if I walk from here to here, I've done something nobody else on the planet's ever done but Jesus. And if I walk from here to the parking lot, I've done something on the planet and nobody else has ever done but me and Jesus. As I read this closer, I think the little faith tag comes in, not because Peter couldn't walk on water as good as Jesus could. Because Jesus is God and Peter is not. I think the little faith comes in, not because Peter started to sink, but because when Peter started to sink, he yelled, "Don't let me drown." Now in Greek it says, "Lord, save me." See, it doesn't make sense to me for a guy who can walk on water for 5 or 15 steps for you to go, "Hi, you rookie water walker. I can't believe you loser." If Jesus can grant you the power to get out of the boat, does it say anything about your faith if you think that once you get out of the boat, he'll let you drown? Oh, you got me this far, but now you're going to lose me. I think that's what gets Peter called little faith. Peter, you got out of the boat and you came toward me. At this moment in your life, you're closer to me than anybody else I know. And then you started to sink because you couldn't pull off being God. You couldn't maintain being like Christ. And now you think I'm going to abandon you and let you drown because you're weak or imperfect and you weren't designed to walk on water anyway? See, I think when Peter says, "Lord, save me," that's a plaintive cry of "Don't let me drown." And Jesus is like, why did you doubt? Not you doubted and you began to sink, but you doubted that I'd get you back to the boat. If God brought you this far, He's not going to abandon you. And there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you can fail at for God to go, "Okay, you can drown." That is inconsistent with the nature of God, who did not spare His own Son. Will He not with Him also give us all things? By the time God's on record saying, "Hey, I sent Jesus," where do we come up with the idea that since God sent us Jesus, He's ready to mark us off on our first mistake and get rid of us? Oh, you have little faith. God got you this far. God will get you back. Now, again, this is conjecture, and like I say, I'm uncomfortable with conjecture. But as a young youth minister, I was teaching this in a Bible class, and I always asked the church to let a deacon or an elder sit in my Bible class. So I had an older, wiser man in my class when I was teaching the teens. That way, if I got the wheels in the ditch, we had a witness, or they could pull me back in. So I'm in there with a bunch of teens, and I said, hypothetical question. I can't answer it. You can't answer it. Nobody's answer is right. Nobody's answer is wrong. But I want you to tell me, how do you think Peter got back to the boat? I mean, that's a fair question, right? How did he get out of the boat? He walked toward Jesus. He starts to sink. How does he get back in the boat? Jesus got out of the collar. And I said to this young class, I said, the way you answer that question tells me a lot about your faith. I'm a sharp youth minister. Because after they gave me all their answers, my answer was that Jesus grabbed him by the hand, and when he pulled him up, Peter walked on the water to go back to the boat. And Ray Brown, my youth deacon, with that soft, pleasant voice, raised his hand. Not high, but just like this. And he said, Lonnie, I just always thought Jesus carried him. Yeah, the way you answer that question says a lot about your faith. And my faith at the time involved me doing something. Well, if Jesus just hold my hand, I'll walk on water again. And Ray said, you don't have to walk on water. Jesus does that part. And his faith, his mature faith, a strong, older Christian, said, I recognize that a lot of times when I can't do what Jesus asked me to do, Jesus carries me. And it's not about how much you can do or how miraculous you can act. or what kind of power you can perform. It's just understanding that when you get out there and the waves are bad. And listen to the words of that song. You call me out upon the waters. Oceans deep. My feet may fail, but you will not fail me. And the real question about faith is, do I trust Jesus to follow him to the point of failure and let him handle it when I go to the point of failure? That's faith. To be a good rock climber, and I'm not one, okay? I'm an intermediate climber. There's 3 styles of climbing. There's top roping. And so if I hung a rope over a rafter in your building and tied one end to you and put one end to me, and as you climbed the wall, I pulled in your slack, that's top roping. You swing in place. There's sport climbing, and you'll find these little silver hangers that people have attached to rocks. And as you climb up, you clip to the hanger, and you clip your rope into the hanger, and when you fall, that hanger catches you. And then there's trad climbing. You take your own stuff with you. You climb up a few feet and you slip a thing in the rock and you clip to it and you climb past it and you clip to it and you climb past it and you clip to it. The only way to be a really good rock climber is to climb to the point of failure and let your ropes catch you. 10.5 millimeter nylon. If I'm 4 feet above my last piece of protection and I fall, I'll fall 8 feet. That's called a dynamic fall for several reasons. But the guys who are really, 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 really good climbers fall on their ropes regularly. In fact, you take a class with Tim Maddox, and it's called fall class. You put a piece of gear in, you climb up past it, and you bail off. And you climb to the point of failure. And the people that I've taught to rock climb over the years climb to the point of stopping. And they don't fall, they let go. But the guys who end up being world-class climbers climb to the point of failure because they believe that even if I fall, my rope catches me. Christianity, you live your faith point of failure. Because if we live it only based on what my ability, this is as far as I can do. Notice Elijah says, it is enough. And Jesus says, it is finished. You get out of the boat. You leave the scared crowd. And you get out on the water where you really don't belong. And you try your best to get as close as you can to Jesus. And if or when you fail, the same power that got you out there will get you back. And you're probably not the guy walking on water. You're probably being carried by the guy who walks on water. That's faith. That's a test of faith. That's showing that my faith is legitimate and sincere, and that my faith is not in me, but my faith is in Him. Faith is not believing in God, it's believing God. When we understand that with faith, amounts don't count. It doesn't matter how much water you have. It doesn't matter how much wine you have. It doesn't matter how many fish sticks you have. You give Jesus control of it. Whatever He says to do, you do it. And then you understand that when you live as a person of faith, Jesus takes care of your results. You don't have to. But it's really a matter of, am I the person who's given my obedience and my allegiance and my life to Christ? Are you willing to leave everybody else? Get out of the boat. Get into an environment that is counterintuitive to be in order to be as close to Jesus as you can be. That's the question of faith. That's the question of whose power are you living by, your power or God's power? Are you a New Testament Christian? If you're not a New Testament Christian, it means you're still living on your own power. You're trying to solve all your own sin problem, and that's not a problem you can solve on your own. And if you are a New Testament Christian, have you been living with restrained faith? We're going to sit in the boat and talk about how scared we are. Are you willing to get out of the boat and trust the arrival, trust the results to Jesus? And that's going to decide how you act at school, how you act at work, how you act among your friends, how you act on a date, how you act with your team. Don't let Jesus call you little faith. Now, you can be called little faith if you don't really invest in it. But the only reason Jesus called Peter little faith, in my honest opinion, is not because Peter couldn't walk on water as well as Jesus, but because when he began to sink, he thought Jesus would let him drown. The Lord saved me. Oh, you little faith. I got you out here, I'll get you back. Are you living that kind of Christianity? And if you're not, or you're not a Christian, we can help you with that. We can baptize you today. We can study with you. We can pray with you. We can pray for you. And we offer you the chance to respond to God's invitation as we stand, as we sing.